Hello, and welcome to Living Spark, a project of the Spark of Humanity Network. I'm your host, Danielle O'Hallisey, coming to you from Seal Beach, California, and saying hello to Montpelier, where I spent many, many good years living there and raising kids. I hope you're having a wonderful day in Montpelier and elsewhere that may be seeing this. I'm having a wonderful day here, and I want to introduce the premise of this program and also move on with it as we go. By the way, we do have a phone number that flashes on your screen from time to time, also an email address. And if you're logged into the Zoom session, then you're also able to join us here. We are open to your comments, to your phone calls, to your messages. We hope to grow this community over time, and it's your input that will allow us to do that. I always like to start the sessions with a little bit of a reading from the Statement of Principle. I use that name. I'm not sure that anyone else does, but that's what I call it. This comes from our website, sparkofhumanity.net. And by the way, if you're ever looking for a practical way to access this experience, this path, this practice, if you go to our website, sparkofhumanity.net, if you go there and click on Attic, there are some meditations, guided meditations in there that I strongly recommend. I mean, they're really quite helpful to kind of familiarize yourself with the practice. But from the Statement of Principle, which is also there on the website, sparkofhumanity.net, I have a goal to say it 3 times in every broadcast, and I just finished doing that. We begin with the insight that there is a spark of humanity in everyone is the foundation of the Spark of Humanity Network. We have discovered that as we connect with and affirm that spark in others, we're claiming our personal sparks and becoming agents of transformation. As we are engaged by life and moving through our experiences in this world, we sometimes notice that our sparks have become defended, distorted, or baffled. However, we have found they can never be extinguished or corrupted. I'm going to pull up right there because there are a few key elements there. The first thing that always strikes me from that is it is an observation, not an assertion. It's not a theory. We at least are suffering from the delusion, but honestly, I believe this. I see it that this isn't a belief, that this is an actual observable phenomenon that we can see in one another. This, call it a spark. Sometimes if I'm trying to visualize it in somebody that I'm having trouble connecting with during a conversation or something, I will think of it as a warm glow inside of myself and inside of them. However you want to look at it, the point is that there is something that we have in common with other human beings and that we trust that they have in common with us. And through that, we will then experience. It's like that trust is just, like turning the doorknob a little bit, or turning a key in the doorknob. It just allows us to squeak that door open just a little and look through. We're not going to walk right in. We're just going to look through and see that that person has also their humanity. Something that I do every 2 weeks during this broadcast is I set myself some homework. I talk about how I've done with the homework, and then at the end of it, I set myself the homework for the next time. And hey, if this is your first time, you've found a good one to drop into, because I have no idea what I'm going to give myself for homework this time. I've got a lot of thoughts about what has happened in the past 2 weeks as I've thought about empathy, which is was the assignment for this time. I had been reading something by a Buddhist monk who was talking about how we can kind of visualize ourselves sharing the experience of someone else. And this is easier if we really know the person. But I had such an interesting flash when I was reading that. There was just this moment that someone that I knew came to my mind, and I suddenly felt like I was seeing the world through their eyes, briefly, really briefly. And I was trying through the rest of the discussion of that to talk about that, but also set up my homework. My homework being to try to see the world through someone else's eyes, to do that at least once. And I had fully anticipated doing that only with people that I knew and trusted, that I knew they were cool, in other words. And I've had a pretty interesting experience because instead of that happening, there was this kind of, first of all, there had been kind of a roadblock. I just haven't had a good time trying to experience feeling others, empathy, and seeing the world through their eyes. I really felt like there was a bit of a roadblock for the first, I don't know, first week that I was working on this. Sometimes I'm really glad that we do this every 2 weeks because I have a little more time. So last Thursday, I said, boy, you're not really getting there. And I'm part of a group. I'm actually the moderator in a group of people, all of us older, all of us self-identified as queer, one way or another, LGBT plus. Let's leave the alphabet soup off right there. But in that group, especially because I'm the moderator, I have to be very careful not to give out a lot of personal information. I am on the West Coast. Presumably, you're on the East Coast. There's not going to be, you're not going to cross paths with this person, but maybe you will, or maybe someone from out here will tune in because they know me. So I want to be sure to avoid being too giving too much information out. There was a person in one of these sessions who was acting like they were the all-knowing entity in the room. Kind of whatever topic came up, they were clear on it. They were telling people how they should feel rather than trying to experience, give people space to feel what they feel or talk about what they wanted to. This went on longer and longer, and I am the moderator, and I failed to do what I should have been doing, which is to kind of contain that. I made very faint efforts to do that, and they failed. And I wasn't good at following up and really shutting this person down in a way that I'm always too worried that I'm going to hurt someone's feelings. So there you go. I'm a little too much of a people pleaser to be in that role sometimes. So it was interesting to watch because as the session went on, if someone else was talking about what they were about, this guy wouldn't even, yes, it was a guy. Okay, gave you that much information, but I'm not going to do more than that. They didn't even use the chat section of Zoom because this is an online meeting. Instead, he was writing things down and sticking that up in front of his camera. And so there was a constant stream of interruptions and comments, and people had to keep telling him to stop doing it, to calm down. And he was the expert on everything that was being said, constant attention grabbing. I felt like I was in the room with a 3-year-old, and I was just kind of baffled by this stuff. Talk about being baffled. We have that in our Spark of Humanity thing. But this is a different bafflement. It was a bafflement about somebody else's process, about what was going on. And yeah, when the session was over, luckily the group is pretty emotionally sophisticated, and I like that about the group. So I don't always have to work too hard as the moderator. And I was just glad that others stepped in, kind of created a little space for what they were trying to say or do. But at the end of the session, I first of all felt embarrassed, as I'm sure you're picking up on, that I hadn't done a greater job as the moderator. But frankly, I I was driven mad by this. I was, it was amazing to me. Like it was incredible to me how much this person had gotten under my skin. Uh, Interesting in the terms of empathy to talk about under my skin. That's probably a topic for another day. But it is kind of an interesting point. When someone gets under our skin, it's that we're feeling something from them that's touching something in us. I wasn't seeing that. I was really angry and I was really stuck in that space for a few days. And I finally thought, I've got like less than a week to do my to get ready for this, and I haven't done my homework. So why don't I just kind of roll up my sleeves and see if I can figure out how to be in this other person's shoes, how to feel what they're feeling, how to um, kind of look at the world through their eyes. We have all those sayings, don't we? Look at the world through their eyes, walk a mile in their shoes, whatever. We do have all those sayings, and most of us, most especially me, don't we don't do it. We don't do it often enough. We don't do it in especially in these times of stress. Like somebody's seeming a little distant, seeming a little like they're having a rough time, but it's not overwhelming. We can try to see the world through their eyes, but man, when somebody is really upsetting me, I just can't go there. Not as not as the refuge of first choice. I really can't find that in myself. So it took a while, and I started to ask myself, like, well, this person know it all, and I'm and they just interrupted everybody, and they sort of use each person's story as a show and tell. Look at me, uh, I have the same problems you do. I have them even more than you, or I have the solution to your problems. That was usually the track that he was taking. A lot of dismissive kind of stuff. And I finally reached this point of looking at myself very frankly. Not what I was talking about doing last week. I wasn't trying to, in my actual practice, I wasn't trying to empathize with that person to try to feel what they were feeling. It was more an acknowledgement that I do already feel what they feel. It's a little confusing. But yeah, it was sort of an acknowledgement that that I've engaged in the same behaviors. Hopefully not to that extent that I was witnessing, and hopefully not in the same ways that I was witnessing. But most assuredly, I felt like I was yeah, like I've done that before. I've done it before. One of the things that came up was this person asserting their CV, like this is what I've accomplished, this is what I've done, this is how I know. And as I finally let down my guard last week, as I finally dropped the defendedness inside of myself about this person's behavior, and started looking at myself, I began to realize that know-it-allness, which I hopefully left behind a while ago. I don't think I completely have, but I think I have dropped some of that along the way. That this is often the behavior of a traumatized person who feels like they're not being heard. If you've ever had a conversation with somebody who you know has been traumatized, whether they're talking about their trauma or not, you may notice that their volume goes up, especially if they're telling you something that they feel is really important or that comes from their experience, or especially if they're talking about their trauma. You may notice that they get louder, physically, in terms of their volume of their voice, they get louder, kind of lean in, they get this kind of intensity about them. And I kind of realized that much of my work life, I was, I don't know if I was externally, I hope I wasn't constantly externally doing this. I don't think I was, but that I was often feeling unheard. What woman doesn't feel unheard in the workplace from time to time? Which of us, of all of us, men or women or others, don't occasionally feel that we're not being heard, or that we're being disrespected, that our abilities are not being confirmed? I began to realize that a traumatized person who is specifically experiencing some kind of fear, something has been triggered inside of them, will often fail to give room, to give space to others' experience of the world. They will often come at you with a defended from a defended place, striving to be heard, striving to make their voice louder. And it didn't fix this other person's behavior that I finally noticed that he was doing that, not in a direct confrontation, but as I mulled over what had been his behavior and why was it bothering me so much? Why was it driving me crazy? My mother used to say when I tell her that, oh, it's a short drive for you, too crazy. But yeah, I had to look at that. I had to think about my own behaviors. I had to think about my own ways of, again, being trans, being in the workplace, having to compete to really be. I always said to myself and to anyone who would listen that I wasn't a second-class citizen. I did feel working in the engineering world that women were second-class, underrepresented citizens in that world. But I also was very clear that I was a third-class citizen, and that I was working really, really hard to be seen as any kind of equal being, equal person in those situations. I'm talking about workplace only. Trust me, it goes elsewhere in my life, but I'm using a narrower channel to talk about this right now. Now, something that I wrestled with last week was the difference between empathy and compassion. And I knew the difference because I feel like my late mother was very empathic, but she wasn't always compassionate. And I struggled to try to say, like, what is the difference? Like, my mom, and I'm talking about her, but I'm also talking about myself, and I hope I'm talking about you. I hope you squirm as I talk about this. My mom would watch the news. She'd have CNN on like all day, and she would pause, be talking to her, and she'd look at the screen, the television screen, and say, "Oh, those poor people! Like, oh, isn't it just tragic what's happening?" And yeah, it was. I mean, she was great at that. She was great at feeling what others were feeling, and I think it was really painful for her. I think it was very difficult. So I'm not diminishing her ability to do that. That was real. That was very real. But then often she would go to, well, there's nothing I can do about it. And I struggled to contradict that. Not only did I struggle to contradict it, but I learned that lesson. I learned it well. I was quite, I've been quite good at feeling what others are feeling, at sort of connecting empathically with others. I met someone one time who said that she was an empathic healer, and I kind of don't doubt that she was, because I noticed how when she was around someone who was sick, she seemed to be getting sicker. That's another topic I don't want to even begin to dive into, but it's just an interesting thing that empathic people, empaths, seem to take on the feeling of others. There's a whole subgenre on YouTube of people who claim that they are empathic, and they always get involved with narcissistic people, and that's I want to move us beyond that if we can get there. If you can't, go ahead and spend some time with that. But I think that there's room to move beyond that, because empathy means kind of taking on the feelings of others. But the next step that I want us to consider, and another topic we'll come back to frequently on this program, is compassion. The thing about compassion is that it moves us from where am I now, feeling someone else's feelings, where is that place inside of me, and then taking that and moving to what can I do to help people who are suffering. I can take on their feelings, their negativity. But as anyone who tells you that they're an empath and they've gotten involved with narcissistic people in the past, as any one of them can tell you, it sort of becomes a dead end. It isn't a bad thing to learn to feel what others are feeling. It isn't bad to learn to not take it on, but to feel it. But to look at it and say, what can I do to help to alleviate your suffering? Sometimes it's donating money, and that doesn't require having a lot of feelings for someone else. Sometimes it's signing a petition, changing who you're going to vote for, or campaigning for a politician is like a next step beyond that. But the action of moving to a place of excuse me, little frog in my throat here. Sorry. But the process of moving to doing something to help alleviate someone's suffering is it's a vast next step. Most of my adult life, I was working and it was really easy. I gave more money. I didn't particularly give more time. I didn't particularly do more for others. I, however, became very good at throwing a little money in the collection plate kind of thing. And that wasn't nothing. That really wasn't nothing. It was it was meaningful, I believe, for whatever cause I was feeling empathy toward. Yeah. But maybe it wasn't all I could have done. It is now something that I'm not able to do. And that is, that's been frustrating me. And it's been making me have to think about my reactions to situations. How can I move beyond the place of feeling with others to the place of doing for others? And what is that doing going to look like? What is generosity when I don't have any money to give, or I have too little to be making significant donations to others? What can I contribute? The one thing I'm doing that I feel like contributes a little bit to the world is this program, and we will never ask you for money. How about that for a good reassurance? And another thing is, moderating that group. When I started when I started moderating, it was because we had been meeting once a month, and the moderator who was doing it wasn't able to do any more than that. And this year has been pretty challenging for the queer community. So I stepped up. I really didn't know what I was setting myself up for. I didn't get how much work it was going to be. And that work to me is the work of compassion. And that's the one time every week. And this is the one time every other week that I feel like I'm actually doing something to contribute. So I'm going to continue to think about compassion. I'm going to be ready to share my thoughts and my experiences, hopefully, with you in a couple of weeks. And the homework is always the hard part of this. I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Take care. This has been Living Spark. Goodbye.